Welcome to this live stream from RUSI in London. Prime Minister Theresa May has just announced the formation of a government, a second government, and theoretically she claims nothing has changed. She mentioned a 5-year parliament for the duration of this parliament, and she repeated her statement about the need for so-called stability and predictability for the British government. To discuss those issues and what are the first implications from the British elections, I'm joined by the Deputy Director General of the Institute, Professor Malcolm Chalmers. Malcolm, we had a discussion at the beginning of this electoral campaign, and of course, none of us would have predicted the outcome the way it happened. Do you seriously believe that this is an administration for 5 years and that this is an administration that can deliver stability as the Prime Minister's claims?
It's very hard to believe that's the case unless she broadens her base of support in the Commons very substantially, and it's hard to see where she could go for that support. As with everything at the moment in British politics, Brexit is the key overarching issue. She went to the polls because she didn't believe she had the majority necessary to proceed with Brexit on the terms that she had set out. She's now lost that majority, and therefore on her own argument, her central argument for the election, she is not capable of taking us through to the end of that Brexit process. So something will have to give.
Now, psephologists will sort of disassemble this sort of election and there will be a lot of debate, but is it fair to say that this was a vote about Brexit? Because we both were in the UK for most of the electoral campaign, and I don't remember much discussion about the substance of Brexit from either the Conservative or Labour. So is it still an election that was influenced by Brexit, do you think?
I think that we'll wait to see all the results from the exit poll, but some of the information we've already seen, those seats which had the biggest swing away from the government were ones in which large numbers of young people who were primarily Remainers voted, often for the first time. And there's a lot of evidence that Labour did best in those seats which were more strongly Remain, and didn't do so well in seats which were strongly Leave. So yes, I think it was a very important part of this, and let's not forget that it was central to Theresa May's election platform. So the issue of how you interpret the result is one thing, but it's also a case of what her credibility will be in Parliament, and indeed her credibility in Brussels, because within a couple of weeks we're due to be starting the negotiations proper. The clock is already ticking on the Brexit process, and it's unlikely, I think, that's going to be stopped anytime soon. So from a European Union point of view, they will look at this result and say, perhaps there is a majority in the Commons now for soft Brexit, and they'll be less likely to make concessions to Theresa May's demands for a more clean and absolute Brexit.
Now, you said about the possibility of reaching out across the divide in the House of Commons, that may be a way. Do you think it's very likely? Because we have deep divides in the Labour Party. I didn't notice Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour leader, being particularly keen to engage in a debate about details on Brexit either. So there are divides on both parties. Is it really feasible to assume that there will be a sort of some kind of a process of accommodation, even if the Prime Minister wanted it, across the parliamentary divide?
I think the biggest problem actually in that regard will be the Prime Minister, whether Theresa May or her Conservative successor, bringing enough of the Conservative Party along with her or him. Because the Conservative Party is a deeply pragmatic party on everything except Europe. But we've had one Prime Minister after another, Conservative Prime Minister, going back to Mrs Thatcher, John Major, David Cameron, now Theresa May, foundering on the rock of Conservative Euroscepticism, which is so deeply felt by a significant number of Conservative MPs that anything less than the terms which Theresa May has attached herself to would be seen as a betrayal. But it's also the case, in my view, that over the next period, more people will be very clear about what the economic consequences would be of the hard Brexit, the withdrawal from the single market, withdrawal from the customs union, and so on, to which she's committed, and to which most of the opposition parties are not committed. I think there's much more of an appetite in the Labour Party and some of the other opposition parties to reach a compromise. It may not be a Norway model, but it will be a model in which there will be more readiness to compromise on things like ECJ jurisdiction in order to get a deal in market access which is less damaging to the economy.
But you really see the possibility of a compromise over the jurisdiction of the European Court of Justice without that splitting the Conservative Party asunder?
No, I don't. I think but the real obstacle is not with the opposition, it's with the deep divisions in the Conservative Party. And I think therefore what we're going to see here, I think, play out over the next year is that the political crisis in the Conservative Party, which David Cameron thought he had solved by holding a referendum, and then Theresa May thought she had solved by calling an election, is now going to reappear, because there will be no prospect of a deal with the European Union which makes any sense for the British economy without a government that's prepared to reach across the aisle and take on board the people from both of the major parties.
Indeed, and that may well be the first conclusion this morning from London, that Theresa May called an early election on the assumption that she would be the Prime Minister, the one Conservative Prime Minister whose career will not be shattered by the European Union debate, only to end up as the fourth Conservative Prime Minister in a row to face exactly the same problem.